would you mind performing something for us on each of your wonderful instruments?
Okay, I'd love to. So I'm going to play, I'll let you pronounce his name.
Louis Toussaint Milandre.
All right, yeah, just like
That's
that.
all I can do.
So this was a classical period composer from France, and I'm going to play the last three movements of his suite for viola da mare, which are Andante, Minuet, and Gigue. big brain twister. It took me about 2 months when I first tried to start learning how to play this instrument about 10 years ago. Like my fingers would be on string 6 and my bow would be on string 5, and I was totally discombobulated. It was very humbling.
And it's tuned in D, so it's tuned to sort of an open D chord.
Yeah, so we've got thirds and fourths and fifths. D, A, F sharp, or F natural if you want to play in minor key. Then another D, A, D, A.
So hence you can get those plucked chords, and then they ring out as sort of as an accompaniment to yourself. You were not using much vibrato on that. Is that the style of the...
Well, that's just because it's the classical period. If I played Hindemith, I'd have gobs of it.
Gotta look up that Hindemith now.
Totally.
Would you mind playing something for us on this other instrument that Brahms heard?
Yeah, so actually, I told you about the Young Artist programs of my foundation, but we also have another project which has its own website, musicbyblackcomposers.org, and this is something I started getting involved with in the late 90s. Just growing up in Chicago, I was lucky that we have the premier research facility, the Center for Black Music Research, and access to a lot of repertoire and performances of this repertoire. And being a research nerd, I loved going over there and finding cool stuff. So I made this album in '97, Violin Concertos by Black Composers of the 18th and 19th centuries, guys from the time of Mozart and Brahms from Europe and the Caribbean. And after this came out, I started being invited to sit on diversity panels and stuff, which I felt very underqualified at the time, but being a big classical music advocate, I thought, well, this will be a great chance to learn about things, and really noticed that a lot of the programs that reach out to underserved populations don't have materials that really speak to their cultural background. And so finally I realized, and I was getting requests from people who had my album asking where they could find more repertoire. So I realized that all of the work that was being done in academia wasn't getting out to the general population. Both the music itself as well as information about how, Frederick Douglass and Coretta Scott King played the violin, and there were all black orchestras in America during the 19th century, just like there were women's philharmonics. That this is not somebody else's music. And this is really important to inspire and encourage African American children, but also, to diversify everybody's repertoire, because this stuff is so great. So I started this project, and we have collected more than 900 pieces by more than 350 black composers from the 1700s to the present day, from Africa, and I'm talking about composed art music, not folk music or non-classical, but actual concert music. Africa, Europe, North America, South America, the Caribbean, even a couple of composers from Oceania. And we've just released our coloring book of 40 composers and our first violin volume for children, and we've got all kinds of different resources on our website, like a living composer directory of more than 180 composers, in case you want some ideas for who to commission or other repertoire to play. So it's been really an exciting project, and after all those years of work, it's so great that we've only just now finally been able to release our first publications. And this is something that is actually beyond the skill level of our pedagogical series. It's grown-up repertoire, but it's one of my favorite pieces by a composer who ended his life in Chicago, Coleridge Taylor Perkinson, actually named after Samuel Coleridge Taylor, the great Afro-English composer who was so inspiring to African Americans at the time. And little did his mother know that her son would become a composer himself. But of course, Coleridge Taylor is a mouthful of a first name. So he, to his friends, he always went by Perk, short for Perkinson, his last name. And this is Louisiana Blues Strut. And I was so blessed to not only know him, but also get to work on his music with him while he was alive. And this is from my newest album called Blues Dialogues, kind of celebrating my Chicago roots as a fan of the blues as well as classical.
Thank you so much. Thanks again to Robertson and Sons Violin Shop for making this available to us. Thank you to all of you. You are donors and listeners to KHFM. It means so much to us, and we're so glad that we've been able to give this back to you. And thank you so much to Rachel Barton Pine, playing Vivaldi's Four Seasons tomorrow at 6 o'clock with the New Mexico Philharmonic. Come early for the pre-concert talk at 5. Thank you so much for coming.